Picture a dimly lit Swiss bank vault in 1916. Heavy oak doors creaking open as a nervous clerk slides an unmarked envelope across a marble counter. Inside, hundreds of francs earmarked for a revolution no one outside knew about. Funds destined to upend an empire. Where's this money headed, and who's cashing in on a revolution? Stay tuned to uncover the clandestine vaults and coded ledgers that funded Lenin's rise. Let's wind the clock back to 1907, when revolution was brewing, but was still more a whisper in smoky cafe parlors than a roar on the streets. Switzerland became a safe haven for exiles, Lenin included, where banking powerhouses like Credit Suisse and Swiss Federal Bank unwittingly held the keys to revolutionary coffers. Imagine hedge arbitrage and offshore trusts being whispered about in Zurich's grand financial halls, as if they were secret passwords to a speakeasy. Leading this clandestine financial ballet were banking regulators such as the seasoned Monsieur Henri Delamare, whose calm exterior hid a suspicion that something big was slipping through his watchful gaze. On the other side of this intrigue sat tycoons like Baron von Gleissen, a Swiss industrial magnate who funneled donations under the guise of charitable contributions. Then there were government advisors advising caution, yet secretly trading in black market bonds, like financial contortionists performing in the shadows. And let's not forget the faceless courier networks threading through Paris, Geneva, and Bern. Runners with briefcases as loaded with coded ledgers as they were with francs. What could possibly go wrong when you mix hedge arbitrage, investment in different markets to exploit price differences, with bribery and money laundering masked as operational expenses? Tune in as we set the stage for how these players and their institutions formed the web that later propelled Lenin's secret money into Petrograd. Now that we've set the stage, let's follow the trail of breadcrumbs that led to one of history's most audacious financial cover-ups. The first clue, the mysterious account. It began with a routine ledger review at Credit Suisse's Zurich branch in early 1912. A junior auditor named Elsa Müller noticed an account labeled K. Lenin, Special Reserve. Why would an exiled agitator need a special reserve in a bank known for conservative banking practices? Her eyebrows shot up like a startled sparrow. The balance wasn't huge, just a few thousand francs, but this was no ordinary savings account. Inside, encrypted annotations referred to hedge arbitrage, a tactic where traders exploit price differences across markets. In other words, someone was quietly funding operations by buying low here and selling high there, generating profit streams without anyone outside the circle realizing. Elsa's casual question, "Who's this K. Lenin, and why does he have enough funds to keep buying foreign bonds?" sparked nothing but a shrug from her manager, who was too busy sipping coffee and complaining about the endless paperwork. Seriously, did they think Swiss bankers wouldn't notice piles of unmarked cash passing through their vaults? But Elsa tucked the curiosity in the back of her mind like a bookmark, unaware she had just stumbled on the first clue. Transition. But the ledger entry was merely the tip of an iceberg that stretched all the way to Petrograd. The second clue, the international informant. Fast forward to late 1913. Word circulated that a shadowy figure, codenamed Martin, was frequenting cafes in Geneva, meeting with a string of revolutionaries. Martin wasn't just any courier, he was an international informant, entrusted with carrying suitcases crammed with carrots for camels? Nope. Crammed with thousands of francs disguised as donations. It was all cloaked under the term offshore trust, a legal structure where assets are held in another jurisdiction to obscure true ownership. Simply put, Lenin's supporters were parking money in neutral Switzerland, then funneling it through dummy corporations to avoid prying eyes. Imagine Martin hunched over a table, steam from his espresso mingling with cigar smoke as he handed over a leather satchel to an unknown contact, possibly a banker, maybe an agent of the Tsarist secret police. We'll never know for sure. Martin vanished shortly after, leaving behind tantalizing hints. Coded letters, scrawled bank names, and a tantalizing reference to Project Octagon. Was this a plan to bundle funds into a shipment destined for Russia's Underground Railroad? The intrigue mounted. Transition. But as Martin disappeared, so did the trail. Or so it seemed. The third clue, the sudden disappearance of funds. March 1914 brought the storm when Lenin's account at Swiss Federal Bank went dry almost overnight. One day there were 40,000 francs. The next, the balance read zero. How? The official explanation was routine transfer, but insiders whispered about a covert evacuation of cash to Petrograd. It involved bribery and money laundering, bribery being the exchange of favors or money to influence decisions, and money laundering being the process of making dirty money appear clean. In plain English, someone greased enough palms to move crates of gold-backed francs onto a disguised cargo train, bypassing checkpoints. Eyewitnesses reported crates marked medical supplies loaded onto a sealed train car under cover of darkness. Guards at the border claimed they saw nothing out of the ordinary, which raised more eyebrows than a cat at a dog show. Was the Swiss government turning a blind eye? Or did bribed officials simply look the other way? Meanwhile, rumors hinted at Operation Red Tide, a coded plan to send the gold to Hungarian ports, where it would be shipped to Russia via a labyrinthine route through the Balkans, passing through 4 countries without a single customs inspection. It sounded like 007 chasing a nuclear bomb, but this was real life. Conclusion of clues. Each clue brought more questions than answers. Elf, absurd jokes about Swiss bankers polishing their watches, while revolutionaries filled vaults with clandestine funds. The stage was set for a revelation that would change the course of history. Finally, a breakthrough emerges from the dusty archives of the Swiss Federal Banking Commission. A formerly classified memo, dated April 1917, outlines Operation Winter Sun, Lenin's code name for the bulk transfer of funds. Here's where things get juicier than a ripe apricot. The memo reveals that Swiss banking regulators, including Henri Delamare, had quietly inked a side agreement with Russian émigré bankers to delay any audit of Lenin's accounts until after the revolution. In exchange, those émigré bankers received a cut, essentially a tip for being financial middlemen. That's right. While Lenin's troops were training in the shadows, his Swiss financiers were playing a game of high-stakes M&A poker, using terms like offshore trust and escrow arrangements to mask fund flows. Think of an offshore trust as a safe deposit box in another country. No prying eyes allowed, where your money can chill like a glacier before blasting heat back to your home base. The memo details how crates labeled medical supplies were loaded onto the Orient Express under the noses of customs officials, thanks to false invoicing, a classic money laundering tactic where you overstate or understate the value of goods to disguise illicit flows. Those crates weren't bandages and morphine. They were filled with gold-backed francs concealed beneath stacks of innocuous medical pamphlets. A small band of revolutionaries led by Comrade Victor, aka Viktor Ivanov, managed the handoff to Russian contacts in Budapest, who then rerouted the funds via the Danube River, skipping customs checks under force majeure pretexts, since war-torn borders made paperwork a nightmare. Now you might ask, if this was all so intricate, why didn't the Tsar's secret police catch on? Because they were busy counting their own bribes. A side note in the memo mentions that 2 high-ranking officials in the Tsarist secret police received honorarium payments through dummy corporations. Classic bribery and money laundering 101. In other words, someone in St. Petersburg, was too busy filling pockets to notice missing gold. By October 1917, as the Red Guards stormed the Winter Palace, Lenin's secret money was already funding commissars and printing presses, ensuring the new regime had enough capital to shout, "Peace, land, and bread," louder than the pro-government rally across the river. Without those hidden funds, Lenin's October Revolution might have been as underpowered as a bicycle going uphill. No horsepower, no momentum. So here's the kicker. Declassified evidence shows that roughly 200,000 gold francs, equivalent to millions by today's standards, were transferred this way. That's not chump change. It's the kind of money that buys rail cars, pays propaganda pamphleteers, and greases the wheels of revolutionary zeal. Who would have thought that the fate of an empire hinged on Swiss vaults and bribed customs agents? Next time you hear someone complain about bank fees, remember, at least you're not funding the overthrow of a monarchy. As the sun sets over Petrograd, Let's pause to consider what Lenin's secret money account truly tells us about power, finance, and human ambition. At its core, this saga illustrates how hedge arbitrage, offshore trusts, and even money laundering can become tools of political destiny, transforming francs into flags waving over a new regime. If a handful of bank clerks and couriers could redirect hundreds of thousands of gold francs across borders, what does that say about the systems we trust today? Think about modern parallels. Large corporations using shell companies to hide profits, or wealthy investors exploiting tax havens while ordinary people foot the bill. Are we that different from those 1917 revolutionaries sneaking crates onto the Orient Express? Here's a thought-provoking question. If today's financial insiders decided to bankroll a movement, political, social, or otherwise, how might they mask their tracks in an age of digital ledgers and blockchain? Would it be easier or harder than smuggling gold under stacks of medical pamphlets? And what lessons should modern investors and everyday savers take away? First, transparency matters. Always ask, who's really behind this fund? And where does the money go? Second, beware of too good to be true returns. It could be the next hedge arbitrage scheme wrapped in a shiny bow. Finally, if you enjoyed unraveling this century-old financial whodunit, give your thumbs a workout. Like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you won't miss our next deep dive into money's hidden currents. Drop a comment below telling us which modern money mystery you want solved next. Ponzi schemes, offshore empires, cryptocurrency cons. We want to hear your picks. Thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes the biggest revolutions start with the smallest accounts.